Hey, I'm Emma Garlett, and on today's episode of Paint It Blak, I'll explain what Indigenous cultural and intellectual property is, and the need to have stronger legal protections for it. Join me as I paint it black. Indigenous cultural and intellectual property is based in customary laws and includes heritage, culture, Indigenous languages, significant cultural sites, ancestral remains, and genetic material, among many other things. Indigenous knowledge is a component of ICIP, which falls under two categories: knowledge and skills and traditional cultural expression. Knowledge and skills are innovations and can include scientific, agricultural, or land management knowledge. Traditional cultural expression is anything in a tangible or intangible form, like dancing or artwork. Unfortunately, ICIP is not recognised in the Australian legal system. Last year, in December, the Australian Government's Productivity Commission released a final report calling to change the law to protect Indigenous arts and crafts. From the outset, I need to say this. Many Australian laws didn't include or protect First Nations people or knowledge. Today, I want to provide you with a deep dive into one such area: intellectual property law. Imagine if I could take all of your knowledge and profit on it, and you couldn't do anything about it. Well, no need to imagine, because that is what is currently happening around Australia with Indigenous cultural and intellectual property, which is not adequately protected under intellectual property law in Australia. There has been some great work done over the years, and momentum is growing in this space. But unfortunately, many First Nations people and communities are still being exploited and ripped off. Why should you care? Well, like I said earlier, how would you feel if you were ripped off and the law didn't protect your intellectual property? Not great, I would imagine. And 83 to 89% of Indigenous-style souvenir products are inauthentic. This means First Nations culture and art is being exploited by others for commercial gain. Maybe the domestic and international airports should do a deep dive into the authenticity of the Indigenous-style products they sell. The point of ICIP is to provide an avenue for First Nations people to become involved in the commercialisation of their intellectual property, culture and heritage in the absence of adequate law. Australia is recognising the importance of ICIP, and last year the Productivity Commission released a final report on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander visual arts and crafts. The report outlines there needs to be stronger legal protections for ICIP for First Nations people. Such laws would allow traditional owners to sue people who use their ICIP without permission. Internationally, the United Nations recognises ICIP. Article 31 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People outlines the importance of ICIP. Even the World Intellectual Property Organisation addresses traditional knowledge. The appropriation and exploitation of Indigenous culture is not new. A few years ago, the French high fashion brand Chanel created a $2,000 boomerang, which received major backlash. Also, the Australian clothing brand Zimmermann copied a traditional Mexican design and apologised. This is why the Productivity Commission is right. We need laws to protect ICIP. What can you do? If you are a company, have a look at IP Australia's Indigenous Knowledge IP Hub. You can also engage specialists who can assist you to come to an agreement with the First Nations community or individual. Have a look at the ICIP protocols by Australia Council for the Arts and the Screen Australia protocols. They are a good example of the protection of ICIP rights in action. You can also create your own internal policies around how to work with First Nations artists. If you are a First Nations artist, contact Arts Law Australia, who work with artists to protect ICIP through their Artists in the Blak program. We need better laws. It will be a rigorous process to ensure any future laws adequately protect ICIP. It is time to end the exploitation of First Nations culture by others for commercial gain. We need to change the paradigm of thinking. Those residing at the top echelons of our society should act. We need to shed light on the issue and ensure it is no longer invisible. Aboriginal land was stolen. Isn't that enough? Surely our ICIP won't continually be subjected to the same misfortune. Thanks for watching Paint It Blak with me, Emma Garlett. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have a good one.